What's up, everybody? If we haven't met before, my name is Dallas, and if you don't know, I love my Onewheel Pint. I got this a few months ago. I've put a few hundred miles on it. I've gone on a lot of group rides. I've ridden off-road, on-road, on the beach, all sorts of different places. I absolutely love the thing. It's seriously so much fun. However, I hate the range. You only get about 8, 9, 10 miles if you really squeak it out of it. And then the charging time is like 2 hours if you're from 0 to 100. So that's kind of a bummer. So today what we're gonna do is a VNR, or a vamp and ride is what this is, this modification. It's gonna allow me to connect a big old battery like this to the Pint, extending my range a whole ton. I'm gonna walk you through all of it. I've never done this before, and I'm putting the whole kit together on my own. Now there are kits you can buy online. Shout out to all those guys. They're doing an awesome job. You should definitely just buy a kit if you want, but I like doing things myself and finding ways to kind of modify it and make it my own. So that's why I'm going this route. You can also save a couple bucks if you go this route. It's probably not worth it though, if that's your whole point, is to save money. I think you can save maybe $60 or something on the kit if you do it your own. But if you don't want to do it that way, you don't have to. I'm going to put links for everything that you see pretty much, other than a few tools, in the description below. And first we're going to go over every single thing you need to make this happen. Okay, so first off, obviously you need a Onewheel. You can do a Pint, or you could do this with the XR. Where you tap though, the power lines might be a little different. So today's going to be specifically for the Onewheel Pint. Now it depends on what firmware and what hardware you have also. Onewheel doesn't love people doing this, so they've been blocking it on some of the Pints. Now at this date and time, it's gonna work on mine because I've done all my research. I definitely recommend going on the groups on like Facebook or on Reddit. Okay, next up, you're gonna need to pick a battery. Now with the Onewheel Pint, it has to be 60 volts. There's a few different brands. I'm going with this one right here. This is the Gialit is how you say it, I think. It's a 60 volt, it's a 5 amp hour. Now the amp hour, they come in 2, 2.5, 4, 5, and I think there's even a 7.5 out there that's like really hefty. This one weighs just over 4 pounds. It's 5 amp hour, like I said, and the amp hour is really what tells you how far you can go, or how much more range you're gonna get out of it. I've heard a basic understanding of about 3 miles or so, plus or minus, depending on your weight and riding style, per amp hour. So I'm hoping to get like maybe 15 more miles out of this. So my ultimate goal is to be able to go over 20 miles on my Pint without charging it. That would be super epic. So we're gonna try to get that out of this. So next up, you're gonna need some wire. I'm going with 14 gauge wire, hookup wire. So you're gonna need wire. You're gonna need a set of, let's see, these are Torx Plus. They're like tamper proof. They're 5-point star bits. This allows you to get into the Onewheel. You're gonna need those, you have to have them. You're gonna need a little hammer. You're gonna need some wire strippers or pliers, and just some pliers in general. You're gonna need those. You're either gonna need like a cigarette lighter or a heat gun for the shrink wrap that you're gonna be using. You're gonna need shrink wrap. This goes over wire connections and gets it really solid. An additional thing that I'm adding, you do not have to do this, but what I wanted to do is I'm going to add a circuit breaker. Now I'm going with a 40 amp, even though the Pint runs at, I believe, a max pull of somewhere around 15 amps under like a peak stress situation. But I want a lot because I don't really want it to trip, but this will protect it so that if anything happens with the wire, I'm going to be running the battery in the backpack. With a wire coming down my side into the board. You can also fender mount the batteries, but I'm gonna try this way first. You can always change your mind later and just get a shorter cord, make a shorter cord. So that way, if anything happens to the wire while I'm riding, like let's say it gets severed and they touch, it's just gonna blow the breaker. It's not gonna blow my board and mess the whole thing up, which would be a huge bummer. So I decided to add this. You could also just do a fuse as well, but this has like a couple cool benefits I'll talk about later, hopefully when we're all done. Okay, you're gonna need some drill bits, just basic drill bits, a drill of some sort. You're gonna have to drill like 1 hole, maybe 2, we'll see. You're also gonna need some zip ties, just a few zip ties. Hopefully this is enough. If not, I'll figure it out, get some more. You're gonna need XTR connections. Now these are little quick connections. This is what's gonna allow me to connect from my backpack, and then it's gonna connect to a long cord, and then it's gonna connect to the board, right? So this is like a quick connection, right? You're also gonna need some electrical tape. I'm also gonna be using some gaffer's tape. You could use duct tape as well. You'll see where this comes into play later. You're gonna need posi taps. Now these are a way that you can basically splice into an existing wire and run a third wire off, like a T connection. This makes it really easy though. You screw it, a little fang goes in. That's why they call it vamp and ride. It's like a vampire's fangs going into the electrical connection. So you're gonna need these guys, posi taps. You're also gonna need some silicone, just basic, like I just got some regular, whatever, silicone. The 100% waterproof stuff. This is clear. You can get the different colors if you want. 30 minutes and it should be water ready is what it says. So that's super cool. We're gonna keep everything as waterproof as we can. We're also gonna need, let's see, this guy. This is called PET or PET. I don't know if they call it PET, but PET braided cable sleeve. I'm gonna put the wires coming down. I'd like to protect them a little bit, so they're gonna go inside this sleeving. It's like a plastic sleeve for like cable management. And then you're going to need one of these. This is a replacement plug for like a high voltage style connection. So you would run this on like, let's say you like accidentally severed the cord on like a power tool, you could replace your plug with this one. And we're gonna use this to make a connection so that we can connect regular wires to this big old battery. The last thing you're gonna need is a voltmeter. I highly recommend getting a voltmeter because when you connect the battery to the pint, you want them at the exact same or very close voltage. That's why you start with a 60 volt, so that when you're using the board, both the voltages are coming down at the same pace. So I'll be able to check my voltage on my battery here with my multimeter. Cool, multimeter. All right, I'm gonna clear this stuff off and we're just gonna get started. I'm just gonna kind of walk you through as I'm doing it. Like I said, I've never done this before. I am by no means an electrical engineer or even a regular engineer. So I'm gonna do my best here. I do not, if you notice, have a soldering iron. I think when I get home, I'm going to resolder all these connections, but it just wasn't doable to get a soldering iron here. You know, I already own one. I don't want to buy another one. So I'm going to be using what's called a lineman splice. It's an old school splicing technique. I'm just going to splice the wires together, and I'm going to use shrink wrap to make sure everything is fully sealed. It should be just fine. I'm not sweating it that much, but I'm sure someone in the comments is going to let me know that you need to solder everything. So go ahead and solder it. Or do it through crimps, whatever you want to do. It's your project. You can do it the way you want. All right. So there's a couple different areas that you can tap from. You can tap in the rear, which is the battery compartment, and you can go before the battery on my board, or on some of the newer boards, you have to go after the battery, or I'm sorry, after the BMS. And get in there. And it's a very, very tight area, so you end up having to cut away like a wall and stuff. But through Facebook groups, I figured out that you can actually tap in through the front pad in the controller. So I'm gonna be doing it this way, which I think is gonna work out great for me. And the other nice thing about it is that it stays a little bit more waterproof, I think, because one, the board is up more than it is down. So after, if it gets wet, the water is gonna run down your board, and it's just asking to kind of follow into those connections, follow down the wire and into the board, which I don't want that to happen. Now, we're gonna silicone it either way, so if you need to go through the battery bay or battery compartment, that's fine. The other bummer with this is that if you wanna do it in the battery compartment, you've gotta take apart like the entire pint. Now, if you do it through the controller, you only have to take off the front foot pad and like open it up and then open up the controller box. So it's a lot easier, I think. Let's give it a shot. All right, so normally I would never recommend taking off these tiny bolts using a drill. However, like I said, I'm at an Airbnb actually right now. I'm not at my house. I don't have all my tools and stuff. So this is what I'm gonna use. Now I turned this sucker all the way to the lowest setting, and we're gonna go ahead and remove these 6-point, not 5-point, tamper-proof screws. From there, I should be able to just pop them out. Okay, then there's some screws underneath the front bumper that we're gonna take off and go ahead and flip the board over. Okay, there they are. We're gonna take all of them right here. They should all be the same as what we just did. Yep. 2. The front foot pad comes right off. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the front bumper just by sliding it forward is the idea here. Let's see if we can get it to go. If it's been on there a while, it's usually kind of sticky from what I've read. You know, we're also gonna need to take off the fender, so let's take off the fender. And just work that around your mag handle and it'll come off just like that. Okay, now I'm just gonna flip this guy back like this. This is my front foot pad. And then I'm gonna reach in here and try to unscrew it. Now this is where the bumper coming off might be kind of nice. I'm thinking it's just a little sticky, so I'm gonna give it a little extra love, just kind of give it a little prying here and see if it goes. I'm being very light on it. I'm not pushing crazy hard, and it's starting to go. It's just got kind of, I don't know, some grime in there, you know, in the groove, because it slides down some grooves. There it goes. It should slide out like that. There's your front bumper. Oh, looking like I'm gonna have to use some pliers, so I'm just gonna be nice and ginger with everything. There we go, get it loose. There we go, broke free nice and easy. Okay, the sensor pad came off easy. So there we go. Okay, front foot pad comes off. Be nice with this. Set it to the side. So to take the controller cover off, you're gonna use a 20 sized, I don't know, number 20, 5-point tamper-proof bit, okay? So let's see if I can just do this by hand, and if I can't, then I will use the drill to take it off. Let's see. Yep, so it's a little too tight. Yeah, let's try it just as like this little driver that I made here. Okay. Bet this will give me enough leverage. Yep, we're gonna loosen them. All right, now those are all loose. I should be able to just take them off by hand here, really easy. Got all 8 of them here. I'm gonna set them aside. All right, let's see how this cover comes off. It just kind of pops. We're gonna take it off here. So I'm gonna need to figure out how long the wires need to be and what they're actually gonna route to. Instead of just routing straight to XTR connection, that's how most people do the VNR. It just comes up like this, and then when they plug in, but sometimes this sparks every time you're plugging it. I don't like that, so I'm gonna be adding in that circuit breaker. So what needs to happen is we're gonna be taking the circuit breaker like this. We're actually gonna be mounting it right here. It seems really tight, but it will fit. And we're actually gonna be running the cord from the power line all the way into here. That's gonna be the first connection, and then the ground, the black line, is just gonna run straight to the XTR connection, since you don't have to run that into a circuit breaker. You only run one wire, the power line. Okay. Okay, at this point I didn't realize it, but my audio pack actually died, so I'm gonna narrate it. Here I'm showing you how I'm gonna be routing the cable around the tire, in between the rail, and then where I'm gonna actually insert it into the controller box. I start by running the black line, which is the negative line. Pulling it through with pliers helps a little bit. And this is going to be going in between the fender and the controller box. There's enough space to be able to put the wires there, and they're protected from the wheel by the fender. Then through the rail, there's enough space there. Doing the same action with the red line, which is the power line. Pulling that through. And then through the rail as well. Okay, at this point I'm testing the bumper fit to make sure that it doesn't interact with the wires, which is it's fine. Now I'm lining up where the wires are gonna go and how they're gonna go into the circuit breaker, and cutting them to length. Okay, then you strip the ends of those. For the negative wire, you're gonna just attach that directly to the XT60 connection. I'm slipping over some shrink tubing here, winding the wire, and then I'm doing that lineman splice. It's a very strong splice. Go and twist that as much as you can and as tight as you can. Slip the shrink tube over, and then keep your lighter moving, and it will start to shrink down, creating a very strong connection. You'll slip the O-ring over the wire as well as the cover for the circuit breaker. Slip the end of the wire into the circuit breaker and tighten it down with your Allen key. Just making sure everything kind of fits and lines up okay. Okay, now I'm taking a look at the controller box lid and seeing where I'm going to drill the hole. I'm going to drill it right here on this side. It's right next to the Onewheel logo. I'm starting with a smaller bit, just doing kind of a pilot hole. It is plastic, so take your time drilling through so you don't crack it. Then I'm following through with a larger bit, just large enough so that you can fit the two 14-gauge wires through. You can see the hole here. Okay, inside there are these kind of walls or ridges. I'm going to need to drill another hole in those so that I can get the wire into the compartment area where the actual power lines are on the controller. Once you get that hole on the inside, you can route the cables all the way through, going through both holes. Okay, then this is the actual posi-tap connection. I'm showing you how it works on a piece of scrap wire. You slip this end over the wire that you're tapping. You strip the end of the wire that you're going to actually be attaching as like the T connection, and you slip it through this little cap. It exposes just a bit of the wire. Then when you screw on the fang part, it touches that end of the wire to a contact. Screw those together, and you've created your fang. That's why they call it vamp and ride, or VNR. So you can see the spike, when you push it in, will actually pierce the wire. You tighten it down just by screwing it with your hand. Creates a very good tapped connection. So here I am actually making the VNR taps happen inside the controller box, tightening it down, giving it a good snug fit. Now a trick is if you wind the wire a little bit to the left so that when you go to wind it to the right, you won't start like turning the whole wire. It won't like wind up on you, if that makes sense. Okay, now I'm going to test the voltage, and you can see that the power is running through the circuit breaker, and I'm good to go. I'm then going to put a little bit of silicone on both sides of the wires going through the controller box opening. Be sure to move the wires a little bit when you do this so that you get the silicone all the way kind of in between the wires and on all sides. Now I'm showing you the plug. This is that adapter plug. When you take these apart and open them up, you'll see they have just connections on the inside. This is where you would reattach like a severed cord. Now if you take a hammer and you tap on these, the blades will pop out. There's the blade. And then there's the screw head. That's actually where you're going to attach wire to it. Now what's great about these screws and these blades is that it will actually slip directly into the battery. You can see me doing it here, just into the negative connection to show you. It's a very firm fit. I can actually hold this entire battery from the blade, but it still comes out nice and easy. From there, I'm laying it out, getting ready to connect the longer cord. Okay, so I just realized that the mic pack that I was wearing, the battery died on it, if you didn't notice. But that's why I narrated a lot of that. Sorry about that. It just kind of happens. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my screwdriver here and I'm going to undo the lead here. Let's put a piece of shrink wrap over it. I'm going to push it through. I'm going to bend it. I'm going to push it back through. So it's going around the screw. Like that, and then I'm going to screw it down. So let's go and take this screwdriver. Okay. I've got a lead. Let's see if you can see that. See? Perfect. Oh yeah, there it goes. Nice. Looking good. This way all of the metal is inside the battery and not in just like open and able to contact anything. So we'll go ahead and heat this back part up. I don't know if it's gonna get that short, but we're gonna try it. It's probably as good as I'm gonna get that. That's fine. I'm just gonna wrap the ends here. A little bit of electrical. So now remember, you gotta plug the plus into the plus and the negative into the negative. Positive, positive, negative, negative. Positive, positive, negative, negative. Got the negative cord, so I'm gonna put the negative in. Like that, right? Now I'm gonna take the positive and put the positive cord in. Boom. No boom, actually, thank God. So I'm gonna take some gaffer's tape. Okay. If you've never used gaffer's tape, it is so awesome. It's my favorite tape in the whole world. feel like I'm making like a bomb in like a 1980s movie, you know? Okay, so now I'm gonna use the multimeter and I'm gonna test the leads here. Okay, watch that voltmeter as soon as I touch the leads. Black to black. 56.2. Okay, now that the battery is good, I'm gonna let the silicone sit a little bit longer, but the final step here, what I need to make, is the cable that's gonna go from my backpack and connect to the battery, and it's gonna have the XTR connections, the last two that I have, the male connections, on both ends, and it's gonna go all the way down to the board. So I need to figure out like how long is that measurement, and then cut wires, and then we're gonna put them inside of the sheathing that I bought. Let's just go ahead and connect an XTR connection, it's probably the best way, to one end of a piece of the wires, and then we'll put it in the backpack and then we'll drape it down, and I'll get it down and see kind of how long that should be. And then I'll give myself a little extra. Make a really good connection here if I can. Wind it, so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm winding and winding and winding. Remember, you want these really, really tight, especially if you're not soldering them. But I mean, earlier, that one that I messed up on, I had to disconnect. I had to cut it, all of it apart. I pulled as hard as I could. I couldn't break the connection. There's a nice lineman splice. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, slip this over. Okay, so now I've got a male XTR with as long of cord as I need. So now, I'm gonna grab a little backpack, I'm gonna throw it in the bag and throw the cord in and see if I can figure out like the length I need. So let's try that. Okay, so I've got a backpack on, got the cable coming out. Now I'm gonna put a sheath on this too, remember, but I'm just gonna measure this thing down. I'm gonna stand near on my board, like at least back foot. Okay, so I eyeballed the length a bit, but like I said, I'm probably gonna end up with too much, I'm sure of it. So we're gonna go to like right here, and we're just gonna cut it and commit. Sheathing. Okay, it feels kind of like nylon-y. This should fit these two cords. It's gonna be a little tricky, I think, feeding them, we'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna cut it and I'm gonna burn it. At least this shouldn't unthread. So if you bunch it, it goes like this. And it's a little easier to kind of feed it. You kind of like let it get fat and then push it, and then fat and then push it. You're kind of like, yeah, you bunch it and just shove it, and it works. Got both ready to go. I'm gonna connect it now. So red to red. Exciting stuff. Okay, now I just gotta seal the black one here. Let's get this sucker heating up. Okay, there you go. Both ends are shrink tubed, shrink wrapped, whatever you want to call it. And I've got the pet cord here now. So now it's all looks like one nice cord. Looks like it was like professional. Maybe not professional, but it looks decent. All right, so it's been about an hour with the silicone. It's still a little tacky, so I think I'm gonna let it sit overnight. It's about 1 in the morning now. So I'm gonna let that sit overnight, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow to kind of finish all of this up. All right, guys, we're back. It's now the morning, and all the silicone is dry and cured, so we are good to go. I'm gonna make sure the O-ring is all good around the controller pad, and then we're gonna go ahead and put the cover back on. I'm just lightly tightening each one of these as I go around. And once I get them all in, then I'll go back and kind of cinch them down. Okay, now we're just gonna put the fender back on. We're gonna tuck the wire through here before we put it. And then we're gonna put the back on. Try to get around the old mag handle on this side. Looking good. Looking good. Make sure it's in there. If I pull on it, it does not come out. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is just make sure this foot pad works here. So I'm going to turn it on. Lights up and touches fine. Sensor works perfect. Good to go. Cool. We're gonna do the bottom screws. Go into the bumper. Okay, that's all the screws. The bumper's back on, everything's back together. The wheel's perfectly clear from everything. We're good. Let's flip it over. Now we need to handle a couple of the final steps here. I'm gonna tap these holes a little bit bigger on the plastic so I can run a zip tie. Maybe I'll put 2 holes here. Okay, now I've got extra holes here so I can put the zip ties through. So the nice thing about building all this myself is that when something gets damaged, I'll fix it myself again. No big deal. I'm gonna put one more piece here, just to make sure it's nice and snug. I'm gonna do a couple volt tests. So, first off, let's take our voltmeter, turn it on, put it to 200. Let's check the tap first. Black and red, it should have 0. 0, okay. Now when I flip this, let's see, it should be 0. All 0, and then when I turn on the board, okay, board is on, and now when I touch this, it should be live, so I should be getting, what am I at? 62.4, 62.3 volts, okay? So, and when I do that, the power disconnects, and no power, perfect. Perfect, perfect, okay, cool. What I'm gonna end up doing is putting a little bit of silicone inside of each of these holes here on the ends of the circuit breaker so that that's all waterproof. For right this second, I'm not gonna be riding through any water anyways, but I just wanna test it all out before I put any more silicone. But I think we're looking pretty good. So the next step that I have to do is I have to get this pint down to the voltage that the battery is at so that I can charge them together and get it all charged up. All right, so that's really it. Once I get the voltage to the similar, I'm gonna plug in the battery, I'm gonna charge them at the same time, they'll both be at 100%, and tonight I'm going on a big group ride, so I'm hoping that I can keep up with the XRs on distance now. All right guys, last night I got to go on my first group ride using my new VNR extended range pint, and it was so awesome. Total game changer. I'm talking no range anxiety for me so that I could actually like keep up with the XRs. I think my board will actually go further than the XRs. Now, last night it was pretty cold. It started in like the low 50s, and by the end of the night it was 39 degrees. We did stop and charge, so I'm not quite sure exactly the range. I'm gonna be doing a full range test at some point. But right now, I think that the board will probably go longer than my legs will. I think I'll get tired before that happens. I want to tell you a couple things though. The circuit breaker worked great. It is super convenient, and I'll show you why. Because when you plug this in, you have to do it in a certain order of steps, otherwise the board will error out on you. And now it errors and it flashes red on like the red status bar, but all you have to do at that point if something goes wrong is you just turn it off, turn it back on, and you're good. But this is the process to plug in the battery, okay? So you have to turn the board on. Board's on. Now with everybody else's you just connect, but with mine you connect it and then you flip the breaker. Once you flip the breaker, now everything's connected. Now if you want to take the battery off or turn off the board, you have to first disconnect the battery. So I just reach down and push the button on my breaker like that, and then I can turn off the board and everything's fine. Then when I'm ready to go again, I turn the board on, wait a second, flip the breaker, and I'm good. That's it. So that's kind of the order of events. The cord did not bother me at all. I barely noticed it was there. Now I made mine a little too long, so I'm gonna add a little piece of Velcro, I think, just to like my arm strap here towards the bottom so I can like cinch it to the right length that I want at that point. But it just didn't bother me at all. I didn't even notice it was there, honestly, the entire time. One time, a guy in front of me stopped really quickly, and I had to kind of bail off my board. My board, you know, fell or whatever, rolled a little bit, and the quick disconnected no problem. There was no issue. Now at that point I have to turn off the board, turn it back on, connect it, and then hit the breaker so that everything once again goes through those steps. So it took an extra 5 seconds to get up and get going if the board actually disconnects from the tethered cord. The other thing I want to note, I used my Eagle Creek day pack. I love this thing. It's super small, and then inside I put the battery inside my camera cube.
This is what I usually, it's a padded cube, so you can put like a camera and protect it inside of any backpack. Definitely recommend something, because then I didn't have a battery like digging into my back at all. I didn't even know, the weight is so minimal. It's like 4 pounds, weighed nothing, no big deal at all. Would I recommend this? If you're handy and you're willing to take the risks of installing it and everything, absolutely. I love this thing, and now it's finally feeling like I can go and I can explore and stuff without always worrying in my brain, am I gonna be able to make it back home? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'd be happy to answer them. So like and subscribe, please. It always helps out the channel. And if you're looking to buy any of these parts, hit the affiliate links in the description. Every little bit helps us out. So I'll see you guys next time.